I'm Chip Bach, and welcome to BluRock. On each episode, we'll discuss what life is like on this big blue rock, where we are all headed, separately and together, what changes we need to make to ourselves, the planet, and towards each other, and just discuss what daily life is like for your fellow crew. And maybe, just maybe, we may also see a commonality that connects all of us. All right, welcome to another episode of BluRock. Today we have some special guests with us today. We have two guests. I have Mary Beth Dunn and Kumari Mullen. Mary Beth has been a spiritual teacher for over 35 years and is an intuitive energy management specialist and miracles mentor who supports and helps highly sensitive, empathic professionals manage their energy so they can ditch the drama and live happy, peaceful, prosperous lives. Her holistic approach incorporates energy healing, spiritual principles, empowerment training, mind expansion, yoga, qigong. She provides individual and group counseling for those who may benefit from energy management. Mary Beth also is an award-winning creator of the World Miracle Peace Experiment, which correlated with a drop in 20% violence in the Middle East in 2018. We're going to talk about that a little bit today. According to Digital Journal, Mary Beth's experience in meditation, personal development, and peace building are truly inspiring. Her inspiring work has been featured on several television networks, including Fox, NBC, CBS, and the CW. Kumari Mullen, who's also with us today, she is an internationally acclaimed spiritual teacher, intuitive coach, Reiki master, and best-selling author. Kumari was also a civil rights attorney. We've had other attorneys on that are in the spiritual space, so that's kind of interesting. Is a civil rights attorney. When her father died of cancer, that's what inspired her to master energy medicine to ease suffering and heal holistically. Kumari has hosted a TV show entitled Bliss with Kumari on the Divine Spirit Network and Roku, and hosted co-creation activations on World Puja Network, a leader in empowerment radio. In addition to being a attorney, civil rights attorney, she's also studied mastering alchemy with spiritual teacher Jim Self for over 8 years. She's an expert in advanced animal communication with Penelope Smith. She's been a Reiki Alliance Master since 1995. International Association of Women in Business Coaching Stars Achievement Award 2012 and 2013. She has also has best-selling author for the books Empowering Transformations for Women and Journey to Joy. Thank you both for joining BluRock today. We are going to talk a little bit about the program that you all have been very deeply involved with over the last few months called 10 Million for World Peace. Now, Mary Beth, I know you're a co-founder of that, and it was built off of something from 2018. Can you talk a little bit more about that, kind of where it started and then how it's progressed to today, and let us know a little bit more about what that is?
Sure. So in 2018, I lived in Parkland, Florida, 5 blocks from Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School.
Wow.
When the massacre happened. I'm an empath, and so I immediately started sending energy, healing to the school. And about 2 weeks later, the students, came back to school, and then I could not breathe. I actually had to work with a friend to clear the resonant patterns I had that were resonating with that, so I could continue to send love and peace. Because anyway, 2 months later, I woke up and I got a download of information. You're going to create a world peace experiment in 2 weeks. I was like, what?
I might need a little help. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, 2 weeks. Can you give me a little more time? Nope. So
it's not how the universe works.
No. And I did it. I got it together, and I had never done a Facebook Live, and I wasn't planning to. I was planning everything on my conference line on the phone. And because I was back there,
Sure.
technologically wise. And well, luckily I had an assistant who got everything together for me, and got notifications out. We had, I think, ultimately around maybe 400 people who registered all over the world. I had people in Japan and Australia and Europe,
Wow.
and like all over the place. And as soon as we went live on the conference line, it crashed.
Oh
And
my
so I
gosh.
grabbed my phone and a tripod, went out on the patio and did my first Facebook Live meditation.
Wow.
So that experiment continued. We focused on the Middle East because I knew we could go online and find independent statistics that would measure this. I
Sure.
don't have
Sure.
any stake. It'd be wonderful if it worked, but I don't have any, stake in it, working either way. I wanted independent statistics.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I found this organization online, the ACLED, and I think they're Violence Data Bank or something. They're all over
Sure.
the world. We focused on the Middle East, and for 6 months, we did the meditation every day. And, the goal was 7 minutes a day to world peace. Can you
Wow.
give 7 minutes a day for world peace? So, and we were measuring the stats all the way through, and I'm seeing that they're dropping, but when we finally stopped 6 months later, the statistics, the violence had dropped over 20%.
Wow.
I know.
That's amazing. And nothing else that you could correlate to the drop. So nothing in the news, nothing having to do with, I don't know, ceasefires or, what I mean? Like anything related directly to that aside from what you all were doing. As far as you
Right.
knew, everything was status quo,
Yes.
with whatever the frictions were or whatever was going on related to violence. Did the organization that's compiling that, did they find
They
that to
weren't,
be
they,
an
they weren't,
anomaly?
they were not aware of
Oh, they
me.
weren't aware of it. Okay. You were
They
just
had
pulling the
no
data from them.
idea. I just went online and I punched in the dates.
Right.
And at that, well, they've evolved. We've measured them for our current organization
Sure.
and our current meditation. But it was just really, really wonderful to just be able to go in and find those statistics, right?
That's amazing.
There weren't that many of us that were meditating,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so now we have our 10 million for world peace, and Kamari is we're on the executive board together, and what's been really wonderful is that we launched in September. So we went for 3 weeks meditating daily.
Mm-hmm.
Then we broke, and then when the war broke out, we had planned on going, doing like 3 week stints of meditation and be off for a month. But
Right.
the war broke out in Israel and Gaza, and so we decided to continue daily. And going back to the 3 weeks, I went back to the ACLED and I punched in the data, and there really wasn't a huge shift for the 3 weeks. However, when I went back to August 1st to September 21st, can I share the screen?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Oh, there it is, a little share. I guess the screen.
It
We
should
had
pop
started
up
the
on.
meditations actually in
Oh, no, that's not
August
it.
weekly. We were doing weekly meditations on Sunday to kind of get the ball rolling with
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not going to let me do it. I have
It's not gonna let
a,
you do
No.
it.
no,
It
it's
might.
not.
It might be. Yeah. It may only let me do it on my end. That's okay.
Okay. Not a
So what
problem.
are what do the statistics look like?
Okay. So currently, the statistics, I'm going to read them. We dropped in the violence against civilians, we dropped 38%.
Oh my gosh.
38%.
And what? So how does that compare? So just out of curiosity, how does that compare? Because obviously there's a lot of information that comes out through general media, right?
Yeah.
And we're all. I think people are becoming more and more aware of the fact that general media, you have to be careful, right?
Yeah.
Meaning, is there some kind of bias? Is there some kind of maybe not so much malicious manipulation, but just inaccuracy? right? How does what you're seeing, how does that compare to what everybody else is seeing through normal channels? Because
Well,
38% sounds like a lot.
I don't attribute it all to our organization because there were many peace organizations
Sure.
who were meditating in that same period.
Right.
And
Right.
we are collaborating with a lot of them.
Sure.
So I don't think that it was because we don't have that many people yet. We're
Right.
growing.
Right. Right.
However, how wonderful that the overall average. There were about six different factors that they measure, and the overall average was a drop of 30.4%.
Wow.
I
That's
know.
incredible. Now, what I find interesting about this is, and I'm sure you may or may not be aware of this, but I believe I want to say the Heart Math Institute did
Yes.
this, where they have those nodes that they have around and they measure the baseline frequency of the planet. And they've been able to see things like, as an example, 9/11,
Right.
that 15 minutes because of the satellite lag, that there was this massive spike in the Earth's base frequency. Like,
Yep.
not a little.
Yeah.
It literally looks like another twin tower. I mean, no
Yeah.
joke when you
Yeah.
look at the data. And that was based on the energy of humans reacting to this awful thing, right?
Yeah.
So the science has proven this over and over and over, that we are energy emitting bodies. And so that if we can learn to focus that energy, it should be able to affect things either in our personal environment or, is what you're talking about, globally, or on this big blue rock, which is the whole point of the
So
whole point of the podcast.
Chip,
Yeah, go
have you
ahead.
seen one of these?
I have not.
Because it's not working. My energy stick is not working. It has always worked before. When you grab it, it's supposed to light up, but it's not
It'll
working.
light up just because of the
Yeah.
energy that you emit.
I don't know what happened to it. It's not working. Basically our experiments and our meditation, it's based on the work. We're standing on the shoulders of giants.
Sure, sure.
People like Lynn McTaggart, has been doing intention experiments for years.
Right.
And it's also based on, I'm not going to be able to remember his name, the head of the Transcendental Meditation, Dr. John. Always
I'm forgetting too. Yeah,
I know.
It was a TM back in the 70s, or 80s, was it?
It's the 80s.
80s in DC, because I had just started to learn to meditate, and I was so excited because they put a proposal to DC after that, because they also saw a reduction in violence,
20%.
not just 20% in crime, criminal violence, but they expanded the search and checked on hospitals, admissions, accidents and things, also 20% down. So it wasn't just violent crime. It was like all sorts of chaos was calmed when they were doing their meditation experiment.
That's fantastic.
And they put a proposal into to DC to say, we'll bring our skilled meditators in for $30,000 a year, and we'll drop we were the murder capital of the world at the time.
Sure.
Of the US, I should say.
Yeah.
And they were responding to that, and I thought, oh my gosh, I could get paid to meditate. I was doing it anyway for hours a day. I was like, wouldn't that be amazing?
This is cool. Yeah.
Of course, they didn't pick up on that proposal, but significant drop in a very short time.
Well, he also sent people to Israel during the time, I think, when with Sadat, they were negotiating for a peace treaty with Israel, and it had fallen flat. He sent 600 meditators to Israel, and we've actually interviewed one of them on our Imagine Peace podcast. But they went there for 6 months, and they meditated 10 hours a day, and the peace accord was signed.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
So with the drops that you're seeing and what you've been doing, so you obviously stepped up your focus when this war started.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And obviously we saw that things exponentially got worse quickly in the war, right? But now all of a sudden things seem to, like I just saw the announcement today that now Israel's agreed to 4 hours of ceasefire a day, to
Yes.
allow for humanitarian aid, allow for, you know, the people of Gaza, the Palestinians, to be able to move south in a more safer fashion. I also saw some stuff just the other day where now they're protecting, the IDF is actually now protecting the evacuees that are moving south. So things seem to be moving. It's weird because things seem to be moving better, but then you get weird things like, you know, Netanyahu saying, I want to occupy, you know, Gaza indefinitely when we're done with this. So there is a weird thing going on.
Yeah, but the
Um,
Israelis don't want him.
I know that. That's what I mean. It's people. I keep trying to explain this to people that when you're talking about this, it's a person, not the people, and even more so, it's not even a religion, and people don't even understand that either. Even though Israel is a Jewish state,
Hmm.
I heard one of the Israeli leaders the other day say, "Hey, look, you know, it's not right that all this anti-Semitic stuff is going on globally." Because especially in like the United States or the Western countries, because those tend to be a lot of Ashkenazi Jews, which are from Europe. And he was like, that's not what Israel actually is. A lot of the true Israelis that have been here for, you know, even before it became a state, actually share more DNA with the other Arab states than they do with the Europeans. So it's this distortion going on that to me feels like people are still in this upheaval of anger. And so what, and obviously we know that the emotions all have energy, right? So it
Yeah.
feels like what you all are doing is honestly, it's like the best anti-weapon, you know, the humans can do, because from the science standpoint, we know that emotions all have different frequencies. So if you can meditate and emit one of the higher frequencies, it will push out, polarize the lower frequencies. And we know that war, hate, etc., are lower frequencies. So if you can infuse more higher frequency, and we know that it's affecting the entire planet, kind of makes
That's the
sense.
thing.
So I'm
We
excited.
live in a vibrational universe,
Yeah,
and even just listening to you talk about the details, it's so easy for people to get so discouraged listening to the news and a specific war that's going on that obviously is capturing our attention right now, which is
right.
a big deal. But we went to the global statistics because we have more of a worldview in general, and the importance of tending your own vibration or frequency or resonance, or the radio signal, you know, that you're putting out is that compilation of your thoughts, your beliefs, your emotions, and your consciousness, your state of
Right.
consciousness. And so that tending that is, I think, I mean, I went from being a civil rights attorney thinking I'm going to help the world that way, you know, in DC,
In pure three-dimensional physics, cause and effect.
totally totally trying to work it
Yeah.
from the outside. And as I went and found a spiritual teacher, and, you know, I was that classic example of, I had this idea that I was going to fix the world or save the world. And then I thought, no, maybe just focus on the country. And then as I matured, you know, I focused more on the county or the state. And, you know, my focus shrank and shrank and shrank until I said, I have to just work on me. You know, I have to and now, doing that for 33 years, I'm finding such inspiration that Marbeth started this beautiful 10 million for world peace, because I found an outlet for what I feel like is the most impactful political activism that I can do right now, which is really meditation activism.
Well, it's funny you said that, because I just had an epiphany as you're talking, Kumari. So Maribeth was very focused when she started on the energetic field. You were very focused in your civil rights attorneyship days of being very three-dimensional, physically based to make change. And what I find interesting is you spend a majority of your time, correct me if I'm wrong, you found that going inside to yourself made the biggest thing. And now you've spent all this time teaching other people
Yeah.
to go inside themselves, right? So you did it still doing that but you're actually creating all these little outposts of people, these little generators, right?
That's cool that you
Physically
say that.
around the
Yeah.
world through what you're
Yeah.
doing, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm creating Reiki and peace warriors.
Yeah, you got these little
A whole,
generators that you're building all over the place.
yeah.
That's fantastic.
Um, I had an experience before I met Marbeth recently. I was doing global healings for a while, every 3 months or so, every 6 months. And I did this for many years. And I started to see if I could do just not one to one, but one to many. And I was playing with my abilities and also the abilities of this universal life force called Reiki that I was working with. And I had hundreds as well of animals and people that gave me their names. And, I was specifically focusing on all of them during the global healing. And I started out asking, I have become quite intuitive. And so I asked to see, feel, or know the shifts that we were making together. Each time I'd spend a few minutes at the end and I'd ask to see what just happened. And at first, I just saw these little points of light around the globe, you know, poking up. And every time I did a global healing meditation, the points of light became brighter and they started interconnecting. I started seeing lines connecting all of us
Yeah.
in this field of energy that was represented in my vision as raising the light quotient, or creating a matrix of us who are, and it reminds me of that 100th monkey story, right? Which is a real story.
Yeah.
There were people watching a certain monkey tribe in a remote area, remote island actually, and they saw a new behavior of washing fruit or something that no monkey had ever done before.
Right.
And so the mother taught it to her babies. And just this family at first was washing their fruit before eating it. But pretty soon, the whole island, monkeys were washing fruit.
Right.
But the 100th monkey was when other monkeys in completely distinct areas that had no physical connection to these monkeys began to wash their fruit
Right.
simultaneously around the planet.
Yeah.
It's talked about as hitting that 100th monkey, that
Yeah. Yeah.
point at which that consciousness or that knowledge and wisdom begins to spread and become accessible to everybody. And so I think that's what Marbeth and I are trying
So,
to do in
so
Terry.
that's the unified consciousness. Can you all talk a
Yeah.
little bit more about that? Because obviously that's the spark point for this whole thing is the concept and the reality, not just I hate, people go concept and it sounds like, it's just a theory. No, it's not a theory. It's a very real thing. Unified consciousness. Can you talk more about that?
Well, Dr. John Hagelin, I remembered his name,
They,
with the Transcendental Meditation Movement, is a quantum physicist.
Yeah.
And, and so basically, he realized that when we go into a meditation, and they did their meditations physically, they went there in person. But I know that we are spirit. We are pure spirit, and we're just so much bigger than these physical forms that these spacesuits that we happen to be seems to be our identity. But we're so much bigger, so we can expand our awareness and unite with other people, who are all meditating together. That's why our meditations are guided, so that we're all, on the same wavelength, so to speak. And we go into this field together. And then we focus on the earth. Then we
Right.
focus on all of the population, on the leaders. We've been focusing this time on the world leaders. And today I had the epiphany that in a meditation this morning and that was our meditation today for world peace. I saw us as cells in a body, in a much larger organism, that we're all these cells, and there's different organs in this organism, and some of them might be sick. And so we're the healing organ, so all of our light walker, light being sisters and brothers, who are really focused on being a light worker, we're healing this body. We're extending the body, and we're also sending a lot of love on these, sicker organs that might be
Yeah.
experiencing trauma. You
Yeah.
know, we're
Yeah.
sending, that's our goal, is to really heal the whole organism of humanity.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that
It's
quantum field languaging, that is a unified field of consciousness, quantum field. That languaging is all from the physicists, the quantum physicists who started studying the building blocks of reality, down, 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 down to the subatomic levels. And they found that there is almost nothing but what we think is mass or solid, is really just waves. This was my first spiritual experience. I actually was driving in DC on the Beltway and going about 85 miles an hour. And I started seeing waves of light emanating from the tree everywhere I looked. There was just this field of light coming across the front of the car. And not only was it visual, but I felt ecstatic. I felt like, oh my gosh, all the trees felt like they were bowing to me, and I was in deep reverence of all life. And I thought, I wonder if it's just the living things, the leaf, because I was caught with the trees.
right.
And so I looked at the asphalt, and the asphalt started undulating with this pattern of light that was not just a visual. Like I said, it was the most loving, the most high vibe joy that indescribable joy, that everything around me was conscious, was alive. What I was seeing, like the basic building, and they've proven that. Like,
Oh
I
yeah.
didn't know that back then. We didn't have the quantum physicists sharing this, but that's what they see, that everything is energy and information in this field of aliveness that they call this unified field of consciousness.
Right.
And I think it was I'm not a quantum physicist by any means. I just take
Oh, come on,
what.
Kamari. We know the
Oh, come
truth.
on. I love the research part of it, but I can't retain any of it. It's just like if it matches my experience, it's like, okay, that makes sense. But there was a point at which they said they couldn't decide what the field was. It was a mirror. We could outpicture our thoughts, and it would respond. And so we
Right.
realized that we're co-creating everything. And that's the other reason to meditate, is we realize we are creators of all of it,
Mm-hmm.
not just the good stuff. So
Right.
to counterbalance that, the more of us meditate, the more we're balancing all the negativities within all of us. But
Believe it or not,
they,
there's been some data came out from the government. There was a project they had ongoing for a long time, 20, 30 years, called Project Looking Glass. And
mm,
that project was exactly what you're talking about. They actually scientifically saw that people's perception and their vibration created
Yeah.
reality, meaning that if they could get a bunch of people to feel or react to something, it would actually create something to physically happen on the planet.
mm,
So if the military and the government's aware of this, right, and they
yeah.
understand it, this is what we're talking about. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I
Well,
didn't want to forget
the
that
the
point.
final piece of that was they were trying to describe what this field was, and
Hmm.
nobody could quite agree what to call it. And I think Einstein might have been the one that put a label on it finally. He hid this for a while because he knew he'd be, laughed out. And he wrote it in his letter to his daughter. He said that field, where the most powerful force in the universe is love. And I heard other quantum physicists saying that's the only way they could describe the underlying nature of all that exists,
Yeah,
was this field that had a loving vibration, not love like ooey gooey romantic love, but
unconditional love.
a, a field that had love at its core as
Hmm.
the
Yes.
co-creative essence of all.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. No, it's. I mean, I find it fascinating that we were all raised, or what I call programmed, whatever you want to call it. We were all raised in the three-dimensional reality we've all been in, our parents and grandparents and great great grandparents and so on. But it does feel like there's something shifting, right? And I've been
mm,
reading lots of articles and even talking to scientists. They're talking about the physical frequency of the planet is going up, right? So that they're translating to the fact that, hey, the physical planet itself, they now also, to your point, know it's alive, right? They never
mm,
thought of it that way. Now they realize, oh wow, this is actually a living thing, and connects to that same level of consciousness, just at different frequencies. And so I'm wondering, Kumari, through other people that I've either interviewed or read about, what it sounds like was happening to you when you had that experience in DC was that unbeknownst to you, you were raising in vibration, which according to what I've learned, allowed you to see things that are actually always there.
Yes,
But
the
you
energetic
can't see
structure
them
underlying.
unless your frequency aligns with it.
And I had just spent the week with my guru. So I was
So there you
definitely
go.
in a very high state, and it happened on the way home. I
Right.
was going to see a
Right.
client, and
Yeah.
this happened, and it went on for like 45 minutes until I got a little scared that I was in an altered state driving on the Beltway.
That you weren't going to come back. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
that I could hurt somebody if I
Oh
got
my
too
gosh.
spacey.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. Mary Beth, have you ever had anything like that? I mean, obviously you've been
Oh,
involved in some pretty
absolutely.
heavy energetic fields. So
I was at
what's
a
been your experience?
workshop in Hawaii, and it was just all about raising your awareness and raising your awareness. And I was just looking out. I was high for a complete week, and I would look out, and I could see these devas, these little spirit beings out in, and we could see angel wings on each other, and they were like
Wow.
specific to the people. It was amazing. I haven't really had that experience since, but no drugs.
That's incredible. Well,
Yes.
so I mean, so along that line, right? I mean, how does obviously you guys have learned about it, talked about it, met people, whether it's ayahuasca, DMT, et cetera. But that plays into this too, meaning that it allows a human to tap into a higher level of awakeness or higher frequency. To me, it sounds like that's what's happening, is that it just allows you to go to a higher level of frequency than maybe you are able to do, again, because of so much structure that's put upon global societies, that quite frankly, I mean, I used to think of it more of as conspiracy theory. I don't like the word conspiracy theory because then it makes it sound like it's a negative thing, so to speak. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but it just feels like there is a suppression of frequency put upon people, meaning through thoughts, ideals, religions, whatever you want to call it.
Television.
Anything that's just super restrictive to make you think, feel, and more importantly, react. That's a thing I've been talking about lately, is trying to respond more to life, not react, because I think we're programmed to react a lot. Is there more on that?
Consciousness.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on that?
I wanted to speak to one thing about the extracurricular, the drugs that people are using to expand their consciousness. Right. Somebody asked Swami Muktananda, who's in my lineage, back in the 70s when LSD and all that was happening big time, and all the hippies were coming to him to meditate, and they asked him in a journal article, are we tapping into the same states of consciousness in meditation that you're teaching about from the Indian legacy teachings, the ancient wisdom teachers? Is that the same thing that's happening with LSD and these other? And he said, yes, which is interesting. But he said, you're reaching those states through the psychedelics. He said, however, with meditation, there's no risk. It's totally healthy and everybody can do it. He said with the drugs, there's lots of risk. And so he didn't deny that was helping people to break down the barriers to that expanded consciousness, which I thought was cool. But he definitely came back to saying it's not safe. And
it's a dangerous cheat code, right? I mean, they're skipping all the stuff in between, which could then cause a whole karmic feedback. But that's a whole nother podcast.
Another podcast, but I did try LSD back in the 70s.
And so what was your experience?
And I took a half a tab, and it knocked me out for over a year.
Oh my God.
Totally knocked out my foundation. And it was like I didn't have a foundation. I didn't know who I was or what I was supposed to be. I was in a place of fear for over a year. So
so it was disruptive.
I would never ever do that again.
Yeah. I mean, I've talked to people that have used it. There's certainly been times in conversation where I'm like, wow, that sounds pretty cool. I'd like to try it. But to your point, Kumar, I kind of feel like the more I keep meditating, I think I have to add up my days again. I sometimes I put up a post of how many days it's been. I'm in 2000 something. I don't know, two to 3,000, somewhere in that vicinity, consecutive
Wow.
days of meditation.
Wow.
And I think, Kumar, you and I have talked about this before. I kind of felt like I get to where I'm at now a lot faster.
Yes.
I said to my wife the other day, I'm like, remember I was like 10 years ago? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, I'm way different now, but God, it felt like I should have gotten here in like 2 years, maybe a year doing what I've been doing. It took an awful long time with a whole lot of, and even still today, you can have a day
You
where
talked
you go
about the
backwards.
world,
Yeah, for a second.
everybody else seeming that there's an
Yeah.
acceleration and an awakening. And I've been at this 33 years, and I have to say, people are definitely getting it faster. They are not needing, like we had to spend back in the day. I counted my hours once when I've lived in ashrams for many, many years. And the amount of hours that we were chanting and meditating and doing yoga and breath work and listening to spiritual teachings. I mean, 8 hours a day, and I worked full time.
So
8
you
hours a
were trying to
day.
get people to raise their
That was
vibration with a
insane.
hammer and chisel just every day. Just
Yeah.
dink, dink. Wow, that's
But I
tiring.
find that people are not, and I'm not saying don't be diligent and don't keep. I love that you're doing what you're doing by keeping track of your meditation time. But I'm finding that people aren't needing quite as much of the grueling sitting lotus stuff. You know, that people are
Oh yeah,
slipping
I'm not
into it
doing that.
easier.
It's 15 minutes.
Yeah.
15 minutes a day.
And our meditation,
And ours is 7. I mean,
7
that's what
minutes.
I love.
Right,
I think
exactly.
that's so cool because the truth is we can get there very quickly and hold that space and come back to it. And it doesn't have to be this huge. One of my spiritual teachers said, just give me 5 minutes a day.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, everybody's feeling like they have to
I've talked
meditate
to people
for
about this before, and
hours
they're
and
like, I
hours.
don't have time for that. And I'm like, you don't have 10
Yeah.
minutes? They're like, well, where am I going to do it? Where am I going to get quiet? I'm like, do you take a shower? Try the shower. Just start there. That's where I started. It's still my
I
go-to
love it.
because nobody can bother me. And
Yeah,
the water
bathroom
creates
is
white
mine.
noise. It's kind of built-in meditation space. Just take an extra 5 minutes in the shower and boom, you're meditating. So yeah,
I
I've
love it.
actually advised a lot of people on that. But yeah, to your point, I am seeing that it is getting broader and more accepted, this whole concept. And I love the fact, I think back in the day, were you all, when you started doing this, both of you individually and now obviously together, but individually, did you find it was hard to be taken seriously back then? There was that, what's the phrase
Oh,
everybody says, woo woo, right? It's weird, it's out there, hippie stuff. That's not real, that type of
I
thing.
literally had people not able to hear me.
Wow,
I was, your lips
kind of
move,
hilarious.
but I can't hear what you say. It was like, I'd be talking. People would stop. It was almost like they'd freeze because they knew I was
Yeah,
talking.
yeah.
They'd recognize sounds were emanating
Her
from my
eyes just would glaze
face.
over. Here she goes.
But,
Yeah,
but, and I thought, oh, they just didn't hear me.
yeah,
So I'd repeat it. And I was offering to do Reiki for a dog who was dying. It was an next door
yeah.
neighbor, and the pair, the couple, they just politely stopped, kind of froze, head to the side, waited till I was done talking, and then went on as if I said nothing.
Yeah.
Didn't reference it, didn't say yes or no. And I went, oh, they didn't hear me. So I did it 3 times. I was hardcore then.
That's hilarious.
3 times, and every time they just kind of went into a freeze frame. And and I realized it was like I was speaking some other language.
You were
Yep.
glitching their matrix is what was happening. Yeah,
So-
that's what was happening.
exactly, I was glitching their
They
matrix
just like
and thought of it
froze.
that way.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
You were,
it was so trippy, and that wasn't the only time, but that was the most dramatic because I kept going, kept trying. I really wanted to help that dog.
yeah,
I was,
that's
yeah.
hilarious.
You have to
So
speak their language.
yeah, and there's that phrase, they didn't have ears to hear.
Yeah, yeah,
It wasn't personal. It's just vibrationally speaking. Now I understand it.
It was
That I was rising, and and I didn't know how to match them vibrate.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what was
Yeah.
happening. I just
Yeah.
was talking. So I had no sense of that. But yes, I mean, people would, say the word Reiki. It was my mother. She thought I had lost my marbles, and she was Catholic, and it was a huge deal for me to stop being an attorney. She went up to make sure that the ashram wasn't serving Kool-Aid.
Oh yeah.
Like
Well,
stuff.
especially back
Oh
then.
yeah,
God, my God, there's
back
Oh,
then,
so much
yeah.
going on. Yeah.
and yeah, it was intense. So she called a priest actually in the county. She
Why
didn't
is
know,
this
but he was a
not an odd
Jesuit.
story? I hear this all the
Not an
time.
odd
No,
story.
meaning
Oh my
like
God.
that a family member brings in, it's always a religious person. Doesn't matter whether they're
Yeah.
Buddhists or it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
All of a
Well, he
sudden they
was
bring
in the
somebody
county
in.
where the ashram was.
Yeah.
So she thought he would have some intel. If her daughter was going to some kind of cult where they were going to do a mass suicide or something. I don't know what she was thinking, but she was scared. And so she calls this priest who's a friend of a friend, and she describes what I'm doing. Every day I'm meditating and I'm chanting and I'm doing mantra repetition and I don't know what else.
And he's
She's
like, it
doing
kind of sounds like
service
last
work.
Sunday in the church. Okay, keep going. Because if it's Catholic,
You
they've
know what
got
he
the
said?
incense
It's
going and the
like
whole
the
thing.
desert.
Yeah.
He said it sounds like the desert fathers, right after Christ left his body. The followers for the next 100 years were in the desert, all living as monks and meditating. And so he heard all this, and you know what he said? This was grace. He goes, Mrs. Mullen, did it ever occur to you that your daughter might be a very holy woman? She was like, no.
That's hilarious.
But you know what? It had an impact.
Yeah.
So she came down, and then she met my guru, and my guru treated her like the Queen of Sheba. Gave her this silk shawl and told her she looks like one of the Swami's mothers. And she just loaded, and she left there. Still not loving the whole thing, still not telling anybody that I did Reiki or whatever she thought was crazy stuff. But she left there feeling not so scared. For me.
Yeah. That's fascinating. Maribeth, did you have was your upbringing similar or a little bit more understanding or less understanding in that regard?
Oh, I kind of put my family through trauma because I moved to Haiti and I lived on a mountaintop in Haiti without electricity or city water.
Wow. So you were like the poster child for there she goes off to the mountain. Oh, wow. Holy cow. Wow.
Yes, and my mom and my grandmother was about 85 at the time, and they came and they visited us in Haiti, and 4 men. And we lived up a goat path with a tin roof house. And
Kamari, how would your mama felt about that?
Did you have clothes on? I just have to know. Did you have clothes?
I did have clothes.
Just a wreath of flowers. That's all she had.
Yeah.
Kamari, how would your mama felt about that? If that was what here she is, just worried about you meditating. I can't even imagine at that time.
She would have been worried, but she wouldn't have been so freaked because she didn't jump ship to another religion. So she was being taught that I was, they talk about all that idolatry.
Yeah.
The sin of idolatry. Yeah. It was hardcore what was coming out of that church, and so she thought that having Hindu gods and goddesses of all shapes and sizes and forms was a form of idolatry, and I was going to hell. She really, at one point I had a talk with her about, I was 30 and I could still feel tremendously upset with my path. And I said, I'm doing so much that is focused on God. I am chanting the names of God. I am meditating on God. I am totally serving, anyway. And I said, why aren't you worried about my siblings who have kind of no practice at the moment? She goes, because there's still hope for them. They haven't chosen any. I said, but they do nothing. They don't represent any faith or any religious. They have no practice, no spiritual practices. And then she said, I said, do you feel responsible for me? Like as a mom, like in the church and, to God? And she said, well, yes. I said, but I'm an adult. I'm 30. You took me to Catholic school. I had 18 years of Catholic school. I went to church every Sunday, like every Sunday, even when I did horse shows. She was meticulous about my Catholic upbringing. And I said, so you did everything. And now as an adult, don't I get to choose? And does that still reflect back on you? And she said, yes. It reflects on me. And I said, well, that's not my understanding, but I can see how that's so upsetting for you if you believe that. And then she goes, did you just do that? And I said, what, Mom? And she goes, the roses. Did you just send the roses smell to my nose? And that in the Catholic faith, when saints appear, there's often the scent of roses. It's very classic. So I said, I didn't smell roses at that time. I had in the past, but not in that moment. And I said, no, Mom, I think they're for you. And I left.
Wow.
Left the room. I said, I think that's grace for you. So I challenged her and I said, I'm doing daily hours and hours a day to practices that get me to God. And I don't distinguish between a Catholic God and anything else God, And so I said, why don't you, if you're so worried about me, pray for me. Go every day to church, say the rosary, and she did. She dove into the practices instead of just bitching about it.
Good.
I challenged her to step up. And whenever I came home, she did this, daily thing at the church. And she would invite me and I would go and say the rosary with her because she was practicing.
Oh, that's
it didn't
beautiful.
matter to me.
See, energy's
really
energy,
cool.
right? That's what everybody understands is that that's actually all the same. So,
it is.
Mary Beth, so
it's
I know now you're in Haiti. Did you come from a religious family?
Oh yeah, my family was Orthodox Jewish.
Oh, Orthodox Jewish. Look at that. Okay. Look at that.
And I ran away with my husband to Haiti.
Oh my gosh. Wow. I was raised in my dad was Catholic. His mother was raised in a convent. So very high Catholic. My mom was a Methodist from the Midwest. And then they sent me to a Trinity Lutheran private school for grade school. And then we went to an Episcopal church the whole time growing up. And when I got to college and started actually reading about the world, I became, for lack of a better word, agnostic, even though that's definitely not what I am now. But Judaism, I really, it made sense to me. I've come to understand it. Oh my God. Going from Orthodox to that. Wow, that was trauma. That definitely was some trauma you brought the family.
Well, yeah, but then we did. That was before we got married. So I mean, I ran away with my husband before we were married. Yeah. We lived there for 3.5 years. Then we went back. We actually got married in Puerto Rico. But what I wanted to say is my spiritual awakening happened in Haiti. That I discovered I was totally suffering. It was a difficult marriage. I had asthma. We went through like 7 coups d'etats. With the time of Baby Doc in Haiti.
Wow.
Wow.
I had, a couple of shops, and I was the painting actually saved me because it gave me direction. And so I discovered A Course in Miracles, and I didn't understand it at all. I mean, it was like way above my pay grade. I didn't I don't understand this, but I kept reading it. And then I just reached a point where I was reading it 3 hours a day, kind of like meditating for 8 hours. And my vibration was so high, and, like miracles were like happening all over the place. Wow. And it was like, wow, this stuff really works. Yeah. It really does.
Yeah.
It's very powerful stuff. So yeah, we went through all these coups d'etats and no basic means of income because there were no tourists, and I had some beach shops.
Yeah.
But people just arrived on my doorstep in the countryside from France wanting to buy, to commission color note cards, which had never been printed in Haiti before. But we did that, and it sent me on a trip to Omega Institute.
Holy cow. Wow.
Yeah, it was great.
Holy cow. So I know we're getting close to, because I know Kamari's got a hard stop, and I know we're running up close to time, and I want to make sure we kind of talk a little bit more about the 10 million for peace, for world peace, and how people can get involved, where they can, what they can do, how they can operate on this. And again, I want to, before we get into finish up with that, I wanted to just comment on the fact that the cool part about this is the science behind this is what's come out in the last 10, 15 years of Kumari, to your point, all the science now, the quantum physics, string theory, et cetera, is now all proving that this is all real, not just
what the mystics have been teaching for thousands and thousands of years.
It's a mystery school, right? It's a lost element of humanity that's now finally coming back. And I find that amazing. So before we run out of time, how can people listening to the podcast, watching this on YouTube, clips, what have you, how can they get involved with this? Because obviously it's clearly making a difference. And the more we add, the more difference can be made on this big blue rock. So can you talk more about that?
Sure. Go to 10millionforworldpeace.org, and that's TEN. We're spelling it out. Okay. There are no numbers in it.
Okay. And then but
it's 10 million for worldpeace.org.
Okay. And once they get there, what is the next step when they get onto the site?
They're going to want to join. And that way they'll receive a beautiful 15-minute meditation by the other part of our founders,
okay,
Terry Angel. Yeah. And it's a beautiful meditation even for people who are adept at meditation or beginners. It works. And then join us every day at 1:11 p.m. We have a Facebook group, okay. 10 Million for World Peace. We have a YouTube channel. We go live on both.
Oh, fantastic. And how long is it again, Kumari? 7 minutes?
7 minutes.
Do you have 7 minutes? Anybody out there listening to this podcast, if you have 7 minutes to make the world a better place, how little?
We dealt with the major objection. I don't have time, right?
No money. It doesn't require you to leave your house. You don't even have to leave your own body. You just 7 minutes is all it takes to make this planet move forward.
I wanted to share something about the impact. We talked about the violence, and that was our main meter. But I wanted to share another thing that I've been noticing and other people noticing. It's not just humans that are impacted by this. It's everything, all creation, animals, the wildlife. So a little while ago, I have spent a lot of time anchoring the energies on my property as well. Once I understood this, that we're all connected, and it's not just the people, but the animals and the earth herself have a vibration, and we can impact that either positively or negatively. And you can tell that if you've ever gone to a war zone, the energy there for empaths is off the charts, difficult, really difficult for me to go to Europe. Yeah, I had to do clearings every other minute. But on my property, since I've been so focused for so many years at creating this heaven of, heaven on earth space or Garden of Eden, somebody asked me, he said, "There's something really strange happening in your garden." And I said, "What?" And he goes, "The animals are not behaving properly." I said, "What are you talking about?" And he goes, "Well, for instance, I live 10 minutes down the road, and when I walk around, the animals scatter. All the lizards run. They move out of your way." He said, "Here, I have to watch every step because I'm going to step on a frog or a lizard or even bunny rabbits. They're not scattering." And I've been experiencing that for so long. I forgot that wasn't normal. I mean, I'll go down to garden, and I took a picture and shared it on the Facebook group because that was happening during our meditations. The bunny just hopped right behind me and sat in the garden with me. And I was moving. I was doing, usually I freeze and I think I have to be really quiet. But this was like, I'm in my gardening mode, weeding, and the bunny just sat there like a foot away. And I thought, so I have been an animal communicator. So I thought, I need to ask what's going on. Like, why are you not afraid? This is not normal, And so I asked the bunny telepathically, I said, why aren't you afraid? And I got back because, what was the answer? Because you're safe and you're emanating
Yeah.
peace.
Yeah.
Like it feels safe. The equivalent to them is it feels safe.
Yeah.
So this meditation that we're doing isn't just for, no war or for humans to feel better about themselves. It's actually an emanation that will change the very
Fabric.
essence of
Yeah.
our
Fabric of
very
reality.
fabric
Yeah.
of,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Here around my house, we
It's,
call that the Snow White effect. That's when the animals are all just, ah, and the animals just all come like in the movie. We call it the Snow White
yeah, the
effect.
butterflies land on your
Mandela effect.
head.
This is the Snow White effect.
Yeah.
And that's what happens when
There
you
you
raise
go.
your vibration. All right, really quick, because I know,
Yeah.
Kumari, I'm watching the clock because I know you've got a very
Thank
hard
you.
stop. What we do at the end of each podcast, and by the way, on a side note, I have to have both of you back because I didn't cover half of what I wanted to talk to you about. So we're going to have you back for another episode. Here's something we do at the end of each one. I'm going to say a word. I'll do the word. Each one of you take a turn giving a quick answer. It can be a thought, imagery, simple word back, whatever comes to mind. It's 3 words. So the first one is peace. Maribeth, what comes to mind? What comes to mind when I say the word peace? What do you think, feel, see?
I just see this beautiful field of energy.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Kumari, peace.
Can I have 2 words? Love and harmony.
Sure.
They're very similar vibration.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
The second word is love. So you kind of doubled down there. So
That's what came up
Maribeth,
first.
back to you. The word love.
My hands. This is beyond words. My hands go up,
Mm-hmm.
and I just want to send energy.
Oh, that's fantastic. Kumari?
My hands came to my heart. I wanted to touch that space of love in my own
Beautiful.
heart.
And the word aloha. Maribeth?
Shalom.
Ah, very nice. Kumari?
Chip.
Ah, thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Well, listen, thank you both so much. I truly appreciate it. It's been amazing. For everyone listening, this has been Kumari Mullen and also Maribeth Dunn. Links will be up on everything as far as where to go find them, how to join the 7 minutes a day for peace. It's 7 minutes, people. 7 minutes. So easy. But for everybody at BluRock, remember, please find peace, lead with love, and live aloha. Thank you all. I appreciate it.
Namaste and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chip.
This is wonderful.